Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Bannon or Airspeed Prime here. I'm the site super moderator for Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com, and I'm here today to present to you the 4th edition of Airspeed Discusses. Before we get into the topic, I have a few things to say. The first of which is that I got no video responses to the last Airspeed Discusses, but there's still time. It was slightly disappointing to see that, but I got a lot of comments, which was nice. And then just a few things about the site. As I said in the last one, Avatar Christmas Trivia is on, so please join that. Should be fun when I start getting answers and gets closer to the end date deadline when I'll post results. And then just to say that the site Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com, it will be getting an update sometime in the future. I think just a few weeks away, where this site will be upgrading stuff like the server, so the site will be a bit faster, stuff like that. There'll be new features like I think spoiler tags will be added in, which are especially crucial now that we're kind of getting a few leaks about Korra, and with the Promise Part 1 coming out, that's quite an important comic that to come out. So the site update will also be visual, I think, as well, so that should be fun to see what the site is like then. Now, as for the topic, this week is going to be kind of like just my thoughts, a little review on the Lost Adventures comic, and pretty much just to talk about how important comics are going to be for Avatar over the next few months, kind of year, as the Promise comes out, and kind of maybe a bit into the future as well. What mainly sort of reaction so far to the Promise and that sort of stuff. So, Promise Part 1. No, I mean, The Lost Adventures. Overall, I really like this book. It's amazing. Basically, it's a new piece of Avatar merchandise, the first kind of comic collection that we've got. It's really nicely put together, nice little book. It's 220 pages of Avatar story, and then there's a little bit of the little preview of the art book at the end as well. So there's a lot of cool stuff here, and it's very well put together from Dark Horse Comics. Again, I like this book. I think for you to like it, you have to go in sort of knowing and expecting that this book is exactly what the title is, The Lost Adventures. Little stories that take place in between the episodes that kind of give us more insight into the characters, but are not kind of heavy on plot. Stuff that kind of may have not been important enough to make into an episode. That said, there are some really awesome stories in here, and some of the longer ones are pretty much them. And they are relics from book 1, which is I'm just going to talk a little bit about that now. That is the only kind of important kind of longer story in book 1, and that is about Aang sees some artifacts, air nomad artifacts, and gets caught into it. Runs into a trap set by Zhao and gets captured. This gives us an insight into what the Fire Nation did to hunt down the air nomads who escaped from the original kind of raids, and just how kind of scheming the Fire Nation were, in that they used the air nomads' culture, their artifact, to lure them into traps. And so that is an interesting book. You get to see Aang use these kind of relics to escape from Zhao and kind of humiliate him, which is nice. Stuff like Sokka the Avatar is an interesting one. Sokka is amazing in this book, just to say. If you're a fan of Sokka, you need this book, because he's just gold in every story he's in. Divided We Fall is an important one, because that gives us an insight into the world of how the world is affected by the war. It all kind of is centered around Grandma Lokai's Earth orphanage for Earth Kingdom children. Because of the war, the kids kind of can't go there because of Fire Nation dangers and stuff like that, and how much she kind of like cares for the kids that she has there already, and that like they're kind of a lot older than like you would expect sort of from an orphanage, and kind of how protective those kids are, and how much they have been kind of like affected by the war too, and how much Grandma Lokai herself is kind of like delighted to see new kids there in the Team Avatar. Um, and then the three kind of big ones for this book, which are kind of, these three are kind of worth the price of the book alone, which just a little note on the price, in that it says on the back, $14.99 US is the kind of standard price. That's exceptional in itself, but I got this book for €10 from Amazon, and I believe on Amazon.com you can get it like shipped for $10 at this stage, so you know, that is an absolute bargain. For 220 pages, that's just amazing. All this, just to look at all this art and see a few nice stories from Avatar, that's great. Yeah, It's Only Natural, Going Home Again, and The Bridge, the three stories that take place in between book 2 and book 3. It's Only Natural gives us a, let me just find that here. It's Only Natural. This one deals with King Kwai, Bosco, and Sokka. Sokka is trying to teach Bosco how to be a real bear, because like we know Kwai spoils Bosco, like throwing parties for him. We see in this book that he's like manicured Bosco's claws and stuff like that. So it's kind of humorous all at the start, but at the end, when Kwai decides that, you know, he and Bosco have to go off on their own and experience the world, it gets kind of, if you've seen any of my episode commentaries for Avatar: The Last Airbender, you will see that I say this a lot. It's kind of really sincere scene after kind of a humorous scene or something like that, or an action scene, where they express their kind of real feelings about this. And I'm just going to read out this bit from the kind of last page of It's Only Natural. Kwai talking to Sokka with Bosco nearby. There are so many things I don't know about this real world. There are so many things I don't know about the real world. How could I ever hope to be a good king if all my knowledge is so limited? Just like Bosco, who doesn't know how to be a good bear. It's decided I will experience the world as a humble man, and that's when they kind of rip off their kind of the king outfit, and like has his humble man outfit, as we see kind of in the show, him riding off on Bosco. And it just shows that Kwai wants to be a good Earth King, but he knows that, you know, if the war is kind of won by Aang, that, you know, the Fire Nation defeated, that he will have to come back, but he will have to like do stuff himself as the Earth King. You know, he had Long Feng kind of controlling the city for him, keeping him out of things, but he does not know how to be the actual king, so he's walking around to the world to experience the world, to become a better king, and Bosco will learn how to be a real bear. And you know, we get a great panel at the end of Sokka wearing King Kwai's kind of crown thing, King Sokka, as we see there. It's a nice panel. The art is the art's done by, who's it again? Art by Johann Matt, who is she is one of the probably my favourite Avatar kind of artist from these books. Her and Gurihuru probably have the best art of this book in my opinion. Gurihuru, of course, doing all the art for The Promise Part 1, 2 and 3. They're great. I'll talk about one of their comics in this later. Next is Going Home Again. You know, this book is all about, this story is all about Zuko, and the kind of immediate aftermath of his big decision to side with Azula and betray his uncle in 220 Crossroad to Destiny. You know, it just kind of deals with his confusion in the fact that he immediately sort of regrets what he did to his uncle, but is trying to convince himself that he made the right decision siding with Azula. And then it deals with Azula needing Zuko to come back, because Zuko doesn't want to go back to the Fire Nation, because, you know, he did not kill the Avatar, it was Azula who did it. But little do we know, in 301, you know, it's revealed that Azula tells Ozai that it was Zuko who killed Aang, or shot him down, because she is suspicious of that Zuko knows something that kind of may have saved Aang, and we know that Zuko knows that, the spirit water. So she just wants him to come with him, so she can use him as her guinea pig. If it turns out Aang's alive, Zuko will go down for it, not Azula. And it shows more Azula's manipulative nature. We see Judy again. She's put in a position of authority in bossing Say as they leave, and again we see the great express showing Azula and Zuko's characters. They try and set up Zuko and May because they know that their childhood crush. So that's really funny, just to see Azula being kind of manipulative, setting up her brother on a date. It's just funny, and how Ty Lee is kind of loving this. She's like, totally, and stuff like that. The Ty Lee, they're used as kind of restaurant staff. And then we see Jin again, and we see Mako develop, and I know a lot of people and are fans of Mako's relationship. I am. I really like it. I think they kind of suit each other perfectly. And I think this shows why. We know May throughout season 2 and 3 is not the most expressive, as kind of shown in The Beach, but this being around Zuko kind of on their own, without kind of Azula there, she is kind of like more fun, and that's because Zuko's around. And then Zuko is less intense. He's a lot more kind of awkward in that way. So you can see how they kind of calm each other down a bit in that sort of way. And you kind of feel sorry for Jane in this book. No, and then the final page is great in that. Azula does the final thing of like Zuko and May have kissed, so that relationship is there. But Zuko's going to stay in Boston State, even despite what May is saying. But then Azula comes up to him, poor uncle, as Zuko sees uncle being led on board. And you get the feeling that Zuko thinks like he has to say something to his uncle, so he has to go home to the Fire Nation with him. And so the other one is The Bridge, and that is that deals with Katara in between the two seasons. I like the way it's done in that it's written from Katara writing a diary about the past. Katara writing a diary like just before 301 about the events between 220 and kind of as she's writing it here. Now, what this does great is that you can see in the first page here, her writing the journal, her kind of intense face and stuff like that as she is healing Aang, and that's what this book is about. Aang has given her hope, and you see it says right here, without the Avatar our future is bleak. She thinks that with Aang down there's no hope. That's how much Aang affects Katara. We see more of the stuff about her not talking to her father yet because of kind of how she feels about him leaving them, her and Sokka, in the Southern Water Tribe to go and fight in the war. You see, I'm fine, and Hakoda and Sokka are like have their relationship back again. That's great to see in this comic. And we see it tells us basically the story that they recap to Aang in 301. It's nice to see it, but especially these kind of final panels here, these final two here of her. I'm just going to read it out. But if we got through the last few days, we can get through anything. We just have to keep on fighting and be confident that soon the Avatar will return. And that sort of tells you exactly Katara's feeling of what's happened with Aang kind of dying, her resurrecting him, but him still being unconscious, and why she is so kind of emotional and upset in 301. I think Private Fire, the first story in book 3, is great. Not really much to say in that, but if you like Wang Fire, he's in this, and he is glorious in every single way. Because Wang Fire is just epic. Right there, that panel, Wang Fire in full action, and Private Fire, Wang Fire's last stand, we see the memorial. That's great to see. Then I just want to talk a bit about Loves a Battlefield. Loves a Battlefield, art by Gurihu, who did The Promise. This is amazing for Katang. We didn't get much development of it in Season 3, but we got the kind of best development in Season 3. This adds to that perfectly. It explains more of kind of Katara's side of the relationship, and a bit of Aang's as well. He wants nothing more than to just talk about their relationship. He knows that they both have something, and Katara's just kind of trying to stay away from it, not talk about it. She's completely kind of ignoring the situation, and Aang is just kind of obsessed with that kiss that they had at the invasion. And we see Aang gets kind of quite angry about the fact that she's ignoring it, and you know, and Katara just thinks that the reason Aang is kind of like this way, where are you going? Are you scared of burning me again? And then Aang says, actually, I'm more worried about being the one who gets burned, because Katara is not talking about the relationship to him. And this kind of adds to the kind of talk that they have in Ember Island Players. Why Aang is kind of so intent on getting Katara to talk about their relationship. And we get to see Kuzan in Dragon Days, and Combustion Man on the Train's a great one. The bonus stories are actually fun as well, because more Avatar Chibi universe, which is nice to see. So that's that book. I'm going to link below in the comments to my review on Avatar Lost Airbender Online to it, because I think with that I can express my views on it even better. Buy this book if you do not have it. That's my recommendation. It is good, you know. As I said, don't go in expecting it to be incredible plot details. There's a few great stories in there which are worth the price of the book alone. And then you get the stuff like Be Calm, which is 3 pages. You get your Water Wars, Sleep Bending, Monster Slayer. But they're good as well. More kind of, it captures the interaction between the members of Team Avatar and all the characters perfectly. And more leading into the kind of second part of this discussion is that this book shows what Avatar can do in comic form. These are really well done. It shows that the show style can work in comic form. Artists can get that style down. As shown with Johann Mash, she does more of a realistic style, and Gurihu does more of a cartoony style. I think that style is more, their style is more suited to comics, because it really gets the expressions across. And again, leading into The Promise, partly because of The Lost Avengers, that's why I'm so excited to see The Promise come out. Like, I think a lot of people sort of feel in the way that because The Promise is not a show, it is not as important to the story as the show. In my opinion, I'm looking forward to The Promise coming out just as much as I am Korra. Some people may find that kind of unusual, but I'm looking forward to them both the same, pretty much. You know. I understand the difference between show and comics, yes, and I understand the kind of limitations that there are doing a comic compared to doing a show. In that, like, with a comic we're not going to see the action scenes as great, but from what I've seen at The Promise so far, it works really well with action scenes. And you know, I'm going to talk a bit about the spoilers of The Promise now. I've already done that in one of my news update videos, but I feel it's crucial to talk about again. I'm going to talk less about what's actually happening in The Promise and more about fan reaction to it, which is my main topic here is that a lot of people are not giving these comics as much of a chance because of their expectations of what they thought would have happened post like 321. And that is the ultimate thing. It's like expectations are the root of all kind of unhappiness, and that is proved perfectly with fandoms. If I may talk about Star Wars for a second, And the reason I talk about Star Wars, and like I've mentioned it in pretty much every one of these Airspeed discussions, is because it's so big. I think everyone kind of sort of knows about it. And what was the biggest thing for Star Wars fans' expectations after Episode 1, 4, 5, and 6? What would Episodes 1, 2, 3, and 3 be? And the massive gap between 6 and 1 led fans to speculate on what it would be. So, and they just had it in their minds that if it wasn't what they had in their minds, it was not going to be good. And I think that is not the way to kind of go about waiting for new kind of content. And I hope fans are not kind of thinking that sort of way about The Promise, but I think a lot of people have. With Avatar, we have had, by the time Part 1 comes out, it's going to be like pretty much a month less than 4 years since the finale aired. So pretty much our last piece of Avatar canon, basically. Obviously, kind of minus this, because this has some important bits, but not big. So 4 years waiting for kind of resolution to the end of this story, and so there's been 4 years for people to write fanfics, people to get it into their mind what, this is what I think is going to happen. If this does not happen, I will be disappointed. Now, obviously the most important thing to say is that The Promise is canon, 100% canon, so like, if you're not going to accept it as canon, you are going to be missing out on so much Avatar stuff. You're going to be missing out on so much discussion in the fandom if you are deciding not to get The Promise because of this. And yeah, that's all I have to say, on that, really. I think every Avatar fan should give these books a chance. If you like The Lost Adventures, I see no reason why you shouldn't like The Promise. People have been saying that the story is not the way I expected it to go, but I have to question them and say what other way was it going to go? They were not going to do. I think what the actual promise, the actual story of it does well is that it does not get really fanfiction-y. A lot of fanfics kind of go too far into introducing too many different kind of aspects into the Avatar world. This doesn't really, it just deals with what is set up already. Fire Nation colonies, mentioned in Season 3, we kind of saw them throughout Season 2 and 1 a bit. How throughout Season 3 we saw that pretty much the people of the Fire Nation are good. It's only the military, Ozai, and kind of his advisors that are the evil kind of force in the world. It is not the kind of people of the Fire Nation's fault that they were kind of put in these colonies, in these Earth Kingdom. So it was always going to be a conflict after the kind of war of what do they do with them, in a way that it's a lose-lose situation. They can't kind of move. Can they really just move them all out of the kingdom? These are people, innocent people, pretty much as much victims of the war as the other three nations, just kind of settling down in a new place. Can you really just uproot them again and move them? And on the other hand, can you just leave them there, kind of, the war has done this, can you just leave it there and say that some of the war was justified in a way? So that was always going to be a thing. And I think the biggest thing of all, people have been complaining about the fact Zuko's character. And I think a lot of people run into the problem of thinking that Zuko is a fully developed character by the end of the show, 321. And I have to say, he is not. He still has a way to go. The reason is because Ozai still has some power over him. Ozai has two things that Zuko kind of needs, and Iroh cannot advise him on. And they are, one, Ozai knows about Ursa, the fate of Ursa. That is Zuko's kind of other big thing. His story in Avatar: The Last Airbender was about him kind of finding his true path, finding his destiny, and it ultimately was to help the Avatar, not kind of capture him. His story in The Promise is going to be about kind of like how he deals with the fact that his father knows about his mother, and the fact that Ozai is going to kind of want something from Zuko in exchange for this information, and also Ozai is the only one really who knows how to be the Fire Lord. Zuko kind of struggles a bit under pressure, and as we have seen before, and as we are seeing in the promise. Ozai seemed to deal very well with the pressure. It's kind of we assume that just like Zuko has had assassination attempts against him, Ozai probably had the same from like Earth Kingdom attackers, like undercover and stuff like that as well. So he has dealt with them very well, and he needs that advice, how to run the Fire Nation. So yeah, and like when you understand the fact that we assume Iroh is kind of retired, he is working in his tea shop in Boston, say, relaxing. Zuko has been so kind of grateful of his uncle's advice by the end of the series that I don't think he'd want to like go to his uncle with this problem again, kind of in a way ruining his retirement. We see, as I mentioned, the colonies thing. That is a big problem. Like, it is a lose-lose situation. And again, I'm gonna say this about Zuko's thing. We know what happens pretty much. We have the kind of bookmarks now. We know Zuko and Aang together found United Republic City. So they do it together. So Zuko is not like vilified as a character for all of the promise. He has a kind of another redemption, I assume. We don't even know what Ozai wants, because even though we've seen the final panel of The Promise Part 1. Like, what does Ozai want? I don't think energy bending works in a way where he can give someone bending. So he can't get Aang to give him his bending back, I don't think. Which makes me believe it's got something to do with maybe Azula. And yeah, Zuko, so like, anyone worrying about Zuko as a character, he is going to have some good moments in these comics, because we know he has to found United Republic with, and I think no one has really been complaining too much about the rest of it. I think everyone likes the art. Most of all, I'm saying, even if you are not liking what you've seen so far of The Promise, it is only about 40 pages of an 80-page book. And that is 40 pages of an 80-page book of in the grand scheme of things, 240-page series, Promise Part 1, 2, and 3. So all we've seen is 1/6 of The Promise. And I think it's kind of silly to jump to these big conclusions that the book is a character assassination of Zuko. I think everyone should give this book a chance. The book is actually super cheap on Amazon and pretty much anywhere I've seen it. You can get it for like €10, $10, about that, shipped. And so yeah, I urge you to get this book. And coming on to the kind of next point, in that how crucial it is that these books sell well. I kind of mentioned this in my second Airspeed discussing kind of the future of Avatar, in that if these books sell well, The Lost Adventures has sold well, the pre-orders... Sorry about that, my camera just ran out of memory for a second. The last thing I was saying was about how important it is that this The Promise sells well. The Lost Adventures has sold well, pre-ordered well. Promise Part 1, the pre-order is really well too. It's up in the top 20 of Dark Horse pre-orders. The reason it's so important that it sells well is that we all want there to be more Avatar comics. Because we cannot get every single piece of Avatar out through shows. It'll just take too long. Because they cannot just constantly, Mike Bryan and the animators and stuff, they cannot constantly just keep putting out show after show after show after show. As we saw with, if any of you have seen the documentary about Avatar Last Airbender, And you know, when they had finished the show, all 61 episodes, you know, they were really happy with like how it turned out, but it took so long. It takes so much time, effort to make the show that they kind of needed the kind of 4 year break between shows. So comics are the perfect way to continue on to give us more Avatar stories without us having to wait ages for it. You know, like from what I know, we have not had much kind of backstory on, well, kind of production information on the Avatar comics. But I know about Transformers comics, and you know, like comics can get done really quickly actually. A lot of the time it is actually the comic company just kind of keeping the book just back for a while, and like we know that people have had people got a pre-order copy, you know, an early copy to like review of The Promise Part 1. That was like a few weeks ago at this stage, so it's been ready for a while. So, you know, we could have a kind of constant stream of Avatar comics, and I think, given the quality of The Lost Adventures, in my opinion, The Promise Part 1 looks great. I'm just going to give some thoughts on The Promise Part 1 in a minute. And what was this? I was saying about, yeah, comics, you know, I think they can get them done in like less than 6 months. And a lot of the time, even then, it's just a comic company keeping the book back to find a release date for it. So comics can get done quite quickly. Obviously, a lot of effort still goes into them, and you can see the quality throughout stuff like The Lost Adventures. So I urge kind of all Avatar fans to support the comics. Like, don't see the comics as something different. Don't see them as the comics. Just see them as more Avatar story. And you know, obviously the comics are different. Obviously, because a comic format is different to a show format. But if there's anything The Lost Adventures proves, is that Avatar can work in comic format and work just as well as the show. And I hope that stuff like people's opinions on what they thought would happen in The Promise, the kind of that region of time, will not kind of ruin their enjoyment, or even if they're going to purchase The Promise Part 1, 2 and 3. I hope that kind of Star Wars mentality of people hating the prequel trilogy, hating anything that has happened since Revenge of the Return of the Jedi. Some Star Wars fans even don't like anything since Empire Strikes Back, or even they only consider Star Wars to be A New Hope. They don't even consider the fact that that is called Episode 4. I hope Avatar does not get like that. Finally, I'm just going to give some thoughts on The Promise. I talked a bit about the fan reaction to it so far, but more of my thoughts. With the book just over a month away, I'm so excited mainly because once we get The Promise Part 1, then we'll have The Promise Part 2, the build up to that, almost immediately afterwards, because it's coming out in May. After that, we'll have like San Diego Comic Con in 2012 in like June or July, I'm not really sure which. So we'll get probably another panel at Comic Con. We will probably hear, my guess is that they'll probably screen the first episode at San Diego Comic Con, like Thundercats did at the last Comic Con. And then we're almost into the region of when The Promise Part 3 is coming out. And then once that is out, the core will be out soon, because I think we had to confirm that core is definitely coming in 2012. The rumours of 2013 are wrong. So once part 1 comes out, it's a nice kind of stream of Avatar content up until Korra, and if if you're not liking the comic, I wonder what you were going to do for the next kind of nearly a year. Because I think a lot of discussion on forums is going to involve the Promise part of the Promise comics, and I suppose my thoughts on the story of the Promise, as I mentioned, I love the fact that they're using the colonies as kind of the main plot point. I am a huge Zuko fan too, and I have been mainly kind of, in a way, criticizing Zuko fans for kind of overreacting to his portrayal in The Promise Part 1. I am a Zuko fan too. I understand why he is kind of feeling that way. It's I guess I just think like that you should all kind of take a step back, look at the kind of bigger picture of kind of Zuko's character. Don't just look at the fact that as he ended the show, he was in a good place. He just started being the Fire Lord. He had not gotten into actually being it yet, so none of the pressure was on him right then. There, it probably hit him almost immediately that he was a big still, had a big task to do. Katara and Aang are kind of boyfriend and girlfriend, which is really good. I'm so glad we're going to get to see some of that. The sweetie thing, I think, is great, and I've seen a lot of people criticizing that too, and I think that comes down to the fact that their kind of relationship is sweet in that way. It is not a kind of like Twilight relationship like what I think people expect a kind of Zutara relationship to be, kind of dark and stuff like that. And even Mike and Brian have come out and saying that people only wanted Zutara because it was slightly dark, and I kind of fully agree with that. Their relationship is sweet. The thing is, they kind of love each other. That's the thing about them. It's no drama. It's just the two of them love each other. And when we have the fact that the first thing Aang saw when he kind of reawoke in the ice was Katara, that kind of her finding out that he was the Avatar rekindled her kind of hope that the world can improve. That kind of symbolism is great to show their relationship, and the sweetie thing, yeah, it's great. And I think that's just kind of people bringing a kind of more modern day mentality sort of into Avatar, where it's kind of unusual to say sweetie, but to them it's fine. They're just expressing their kind of relationship to each other, and the fact that like Toph, Sokka kind of called them out for saying sweetie is for me anyway. If I didn't like sweetie, it would get me over that fact. The fact that just in a way kind of mentioned, they reference it in the book that sweetie's kind of weird thing to say. Toph with her metal bending school is going to be interesting in that the metal bending cops from Korra are going to be kind of led by Chief Beifong. So in a way, that thing with Toph may become a bit like Kyoshi with the Dai Li, in that she created this group of benders for one purpose, but they kind of have morphed into something else, and so that could be an interesting thing to see as well. The fact that the Promise is going to be a bridge into Korra makes me believe that at some stage in part 3, maybe even all of part 3, is going to be them kind of even further into the future. We know that it's a year on since the finale, most of the Promise part 1 and 2, I think. But will we see them even further on? Will we see the kind of founding of Republic City? Will we see stuff like some of the characters when they die? That sort of way. I think perhaps book 3 ending with kind of like the Avatar cycle moving on, like Aang kind of dying and then Korra being born. I think that would be a great way to kind of bridge the series, and I think people should like be interested in this book just for that. The fact that we are going to get something like that. This book is going to bridge the series completely. We will understand sort of the way the world is going to Korra, so Korra does not have to kind of explain absolutely everything to us about this world 70 years on. Not that's pretty much the video. I guess just urge Avatar fans to be positive about the comics and give them as much chance as you gave Avatar: The Last Airbender originally. Um, because when you think about it, Avatar was a brand new thing. You didn't know kind of anything about it going into it. There was nothing to prepare us for what Avatar was, and every Avatar fan made that kind of choice to stick with Avatar despite it being a new thing. And I think people should kind of have the same openness towards the comics and Korra and all new Avatar stuff in the future. So I will see you next week for the next Airspeed discusses. Thank you and goodbye.